Okay, so these have actually cured for 24 hours because I got busy with the kids' basketball stuff and dinner and all that. So I'm coming back. We're going to do a final trim on these. And I will actually be leaving a little bit of a lip still because, like I said, I drag this up and over. But with the nature of leather, it will stretch as we're pulling it. So I don't leave very much, but just enough that I can still see it, really. It doesn't have to be perfect. I had to go hit up the Michaels as well for some new scissors. I'm going to set these ones aside and get my new ones out. So you cut a lot of leather, you're going to go through a lot of scissors. They just dull out. It's just inevitable. So I got these Fiskars, ideal for mixed media. So hopefully they can cut more than just fabric. I don't need it super precise like fabric scissors. And it was a 2-pack for like 15 bucks. Oh yeah, you can feel it. That's nice. It's one of those things you get excited about after crafting for so long is new scissors. Here. Yeah, that's nice. So that's all I'm going to do is just trim around, trimming off any like little corner areas where my other scissors didn't cut very well. Wow, these are really nice. I don't know if you can really see it. It's hard to look at the camera while I'm trying to look at this. As you can see, I just kind of stick my blade up there. And you can kind of see when it's all the way up to the edge of the rhinestone, that's too much. It means that it's going to pull over the rhinestone when I'm beading, and we don't want that. So this is kind of like making a place for the beads to sit. Because if it's too big, your beads will sit too high. And it will sit funny. And then I'm going to be using a regular size 10 short John James. So this is really thin leather, so I don't have to use a Glover's needle or a thicker needle. And I am doing delicas, so the hole is bigger, so I don't have to worry about that. And the more I fill up this hole and these beads, the more nice they sit in their line. So here's my needle, size D Nymo, because I'm trying to fill up that hole. And I got tired of the beeswax blocks that I was getting, and they were from a local beekeeper. So I took some of their deodorized and whatever super filtered wax, and I combined it with some soy wax and some olive oil to soften it up just a tiny bit, and I poured it in my little tins that I use for the CBD salves and the healing salves. And this is easier for me, so when I drop it or whatever, it's not getting super dirty. I have a cap to put on it so dust doesn't settle in it, although I forget to put my cap on a lot. But I've been using this for about a year now because I wanted to do a test before I offered it to the people. And as you can see, it's still really hard. You can see little things that get on my strings, but it's still really hard. I think it would be good for sewing thread as well, because I softened it up with that olive oil and the soy wax, because I didn't want it super hard. It didn't seem to sink into my thread enough. It was more on the surface. And then I take my thread after I do it and I run it through my fingers, and the heat of my hand pushes it into the thread so it tangles a little bit less. And I don't know if any of you have watched the previous beading videos. They're all horrible, and I apologize for that. But this is how I make my knots. Take my longest end, make sure they're not the same. You probably can't see these threads at all. Yeah, you can't really see them. But anyways, one's longer than the other. I take the longest side, And I point the end of it towards where my threads come out of my needle. Okay? Pinch them together. Wrap it around 3 or 4 or 5 times. Then I'm going to pinch where that is wound up. Push my needle through so it's not a hard pinch. It's just enough to hold that coil there. And I pull my needle through while holding those threads. And ta-da! Oops, oops, oops. Yep, you can't really see it. Anyways, there's my knot. So we cut off our knot tail. You don't want anything sticking out. Make sure, like, run your finger down your knot to make sure it's not going to come out. Every once in a while, I'll cut it too far and it'll pop out. And I come up between my pylon and my cardboard. I'm actually going to come up by the rhinestone. I want to come up far enough in that I have enough of this pylon fibers between the bottom of the knot and the top. So there we are. And you see this little bit of mark here that I have. It's a little mark. That's actually going to disappear, so we're not worried about that. Okay, this thing is full. I use a lot of this Cobalt AB, and this is all I got left. It's like, it's not very much. Probably enough for the edges on these. I'm pretty sure white would work, but Cobalt would be dynamic. That's where it's at. And yep, even a simple row of edging will change the look of your beadwork entirely. It just... oh yeah, that looks way better. You can't really tell. I know it looks ugly to you right now, but it will look very nice. I think, since I'm the artist, I think it will look very nice and the way it was supposed to. So back to 4 beads. And so that reduction is not for every one. It's only when you need to that you'll take off 1 bead. So, looks bumpy, right? Yeah, you can see the bumpiness. Bump, 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 bump. But when we get all of these on here and then we start running through, we're going to keep going until they all cinch down and become one line. And they will actually line up. Not perfectly, because like I said, nothing is perfect that we do, but they will be much more uniform. So I don't worry about this. I used to stress and rip out edges and stress, and it's just, there's totally no point in it. If it's meant to be, it will be. You go into your prayer mind, and you go into your intentions, which is, these are obviously not meant for me. You know, I cannot wear the medal, but I want to be proud of it. And these are obviously meant for somebody who is very savage and take no prisoners. You know, a woman that is going to get what she wants and what she needs, that will do what needs to be done, that can endure and survive. That is who these are meant for. So we'll come around this corner. It's literally the same thing, although I watch out for the bend on these corners. If it's looking like it's going to be too loose, I will reduce it down to 2, which I might do on this one. These corners are pretty decent. Because it's trying to take away the chance during wear, you know, putting it on, taking it off, that it will loosen up. And it won't, I don't think it'll loosen up. Because you don't take them out 500 times in a day. But then, what if? What if our little savage that's going to wear these has to get business done and needs her earrings out 10 times in a day? So, oh man, that's dynamic. That looks good. I like it. Oh, they're so shiny too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish putting the edges on these. I'll bring you back when it's time to do the wind up, where we just sit there and we're going to go around and around and around and around until we fill up the beads, they become uniform, and then I'll show you how I tie off. Okay, I finally got both sides done. This one is ready to be tied off, and I did this so that we can kind of move a little faster because I'm too long-winded with things. And this is the one where I said I was going to bring you back. We have all the beads laid down, and now this is what you do. This is what you do when you come to the end, and you run your last stitch and you come back through, which is where I'm at. This is the very last bead right here. And so I'm going to come in front of that, and I'm going to run all the way through all of them, except you see these two, oops, see these two little gaps right here. And this is where I'm going to have to put beads. I might have to put one over here in one of these gaps, and it'll actually fill up the other gap. So we know we need at least 2 beads. You got to be careful that you're hitting every bead. Don't miss any beads. So when they're a little bit off, you're just going to press them. Because it's so long and my needle is so short, I have to come back through, you know, a little quicker than I would like. I cannot find my long needles. I don't know where they are. So I'm going to push it forward. You see this finger is actually doing work. Okay, we're up to our first space. We're going to add a bead here. Okay, and I'm going to come through just these 2 to the next gap. I don't know if you can actually see them, but there's a gap there. Watch out for it getting hung up on your rhinestone. Okay. We know we definitely need, if you can look at that, we definitely need one. It's going to push these forward a little bit, and it's going to start to close this gap. You have to do this before you go all the way around the first time. So while you're doing your first going around, I guess it's the second one, but it's the first run of string. You have to put the beads on. You can't put them on the second one. You're going to have major sticking out. And I'm going to put a bead here, which is going to close this gap. This is going to close that gap. Alright, everybody's got their place. This is not a gap, it's just where it sticks up a little bit. Make sure we don't run it where we can't grab it. See? And everybody looks okay. So now this finger is going to do a lot more work, because as I go through the next time, this is going to either want to roll backwards or it's going to want to roll forward this line. So if I keep tightening it and I don't push this forward, it's going to actually separate, and they're going to see a whole lot of this white over here. So now I'm going to push these forward this way as I'm going around. But I'm not going to go too tight on this next round. This next round is really to just fill up this bead with string. Make sure we're not missing any. You'll kind of tell because one will be sitting lower than the others. You may even see your string. So just kind of looking at it. There we go. That's where my camera is. I need like a spotlight in here when I have such bad eyesight. Especially with these dark colored beads. Or you're going to see my face right next to my beadwork. So you can see it's still kind of still kind of a gap here, but this is where the half bead, it's about a half bead of gap. And we're just going to kind of like this, make them all share that gap. We don't want them bunched up. We don't want to add an extra bead when it doesn't need the extra whole bead, because it will make them bunch up and stick out funny. Okay, so now I'm going to start pulling because I'm coming around this corner. This is actually where I began. So I'm going to start pulling to pull these corners up, because these corners are going to be the hardest part, because they're going to naturally want to roll backwards. So you see it's still a little bit wobbly. This next one that we're going to pull on is going to start to cinch these up and bring them to more of a flush point. And I don't double my thread because I actually want to go around it this many times. If I doubled it up, I would have a hard time making it 3 times around. That's why I use that thicker size D thread. Okay, so we're gonna go to tug and we're gonna roll it up against these. Kind of a smashing technique. Nope, missing a bead there. So if you could see, this one bead is sticking up. It's because I'm actually missing it. I'm not going through it this time. There we go. And just kind of eyeball to make sure that they're all straight, nobody's sticking out. So you can still see that it is a sewn edge, but they're pretty straight, should we say? There's none sticking up, being funny. So evaluated at the third. We can go a fourth if we need to, but I only went 3 on this one, so they look pretty alright to me. So I'm going to come up. Oh, I may have went too tight. So if you went too tight and you start seeing bunching happening in your corner, give it a wiggle. It's going to loosen those threads up. Okay, so no more pulling tight. We're going to come all the way up to where it's thinner width to where I want to work. Because I have a small needle. If I had my large needle, it wouldn't matter. Oh my goodness. Again, careful not to bust your beads or your banding, but... So I'm going to put a knot in here. And I'm literally just coming around my string. Not the pellon, not the leather. Just my string. Oops. So just went under my string on the back side of the beads. And I'm just going to make a half knot. Half hitch. Make sure you come through where you came through your strings between 2 beads. You don't want to like come through this bead and then come around this bead. You would have like your string showing. So you can kind of see where this knot is, but the reason why we don't want to go for is because we can actually slide this knot up into this bead. Okay. So now I'm going to go up a little bit further. It's a nice snug fit for that knot too, so it's not going to move around. And I do a half hitch because I don't want a big bulky knot and I'm tying my knot into my threads like so. So now we're going to come under the string, another half hitch, very carefully bringing it down through the right beads, give it a good tug, coming through to drag that knot into the beads. Okay. Make sure they're not bunching. So now I'm going to take my needle at the bottom of my beads here, and I'm going to come through the pellon, through this corner. And we want to come through underneath these beads if we can. There we go. So we're underneath the beads through the pellon on the middle part of the leather. All the way across. Then we're going to turn this, we're going to come through again, just a tiny bit off. We don't want to run that same exact path. So we're going to try to come through over here. Boom, just like that. Okay, then we're going to come through all the way to the other side. If my little tiny needle will make it. So it doesn't matter which bead is coming through. I'm going to take my scissors just as close as I can. Doesn't even matter. There's a lot of people with those fancy zapper things and whatever. And I don't need them. A good old-fashioned lighter works for me. There you go. All done. Never to come out. And that is it. Simple beaded edge that won't get tangled in your hair. Ta-da! You'll find these on the ChiloquinUniqueCreations.com website or in the Chiloquin Unique Etsy page. So you can also see pictures of these on the Chiloquin Unique Facebook page and Instagram. Alright, you guys have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with me. Hit that like, share, subscribe button for more videos on random crafts and awesomeness. And give me a comment, you know, let me know if you have something that you're curious about that you would like me to try, because I'm not really afraid of anything. Alright, you guys take care.